Let's begin with a quiet truth that many of us avoid. You've spent so much of your life trying to please others, you barely recognize the sound of your own voice anymore. From the moment we were children, we were taught to behave, to be liked, to meet expectations. Be a good boy. Don't upset your parents. Fit in at school. And so the pattern began. Slowly, without realizing it, we started trading pieces of ourselves for acceptance. And it's not that we're weak, it's that we were never taught another way. But here's the question I want to ask you, not philosophically, but practically. When was the last time you made a decision just for you, without editing yourself to avoid judgment? Can you even remember? Because here's the cost. When you live to be liked, you abandon yourself. You become a mirror, always reflecting what others want, but never showing who you truly are. And the longer you do it, the more you forget that you were never meant to be anyone else. You were born to be you. Zen Buddhism teaches that peace doesn't come from chasing more approval. It comes from coming home to your true nature. It's not a slogan. It's a lived experience. The more you try to gain others' love at the expense of your own truth, the further you drift from inner peace. So let me offer you this. You don't owe the world an explanation for being yourself. And you certainly don't need to exhaust your soul to keep everyone happy. The next time you feel that old urge to say yes when you mean no, to smile when you're breaking inside, to shrink so others feel more comfortable, pause, just pause. Because that moment, that pause is where the healing begins. Stick around, because this video will challenge everything you've been taught about worth, love, and freedom. And by the end, you may just remember who you really are, not who you were told to be. True peace doesn't begin when others accept you. It begins the moment you stop needing them to. There's a silent kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly trying to be enough for everyone but yourself. You smile when you're tired. You say yes when you want to walk away. You swallow your truth just to keep the peace. And over time, your sense of self begins to fade, not in a loud collapse, but in quiet, daily compromises. We call it kindness. We call it loyalty. But sometimes it's just self-betrayal in disguise. And that's where lesson 1 begins. Living for others will always let you down. There's a quiet kind of suffering that comes from living on borrowed approval. You smile when you're tired. You agree when you want to walk away. You stay silent not out of peace, but out of fear of being disliked. And slowly your sense of self begins to fade like ink in water. Maybe you felt it too. That unease after doing something just to be accepted, followed by a soft ache inside, as if you betrayed yourself in the process. The truth is, when your emotions are dictated by how others react to you, your peace becomes a fragile thing, constantly at risk of being broken by a glance, a word, or a lack of response. It's like building a house on sand, where every compliment lifts you and every criticism shatters you. And we call this normal. But here's something worth remembering. Peace that depends on others will never be stable, and neither will self-worth. That's why true self-respect begins the moment your emotions stop depending on the applause of others. Not when they like you, not when they understand you, but when you can remain steady even when they don't. Imagine a tree rooted deeply into the earth. Winds can come, storms can pass, but it doesn't sway to every breeze. It grows quietly, fully, because it's grounded in something deeper than surface approval. Your sense of worth must come from that same depth, from stillness, from presence, from knowing, not performing. This is where Buddhist mindfulness becomes more than a practice. It becomes a foundation. To live with mindfulness is to remember, my peace is my responsibility. My value is not up for negotiation. It's not about becoming indifferent or cold. It's about becoming free. Free from the emotional roller coaster of trying to be enough for everyone else. Free to say, this is who I am, even if you don't see it. You start honoring your feelings without explaining them. You begin choosing your path without needing permission. And in that space, self-respect takes root. So the next time you feel pulled to perform, to please, or to shrink, pause. Breathe. Ask gently, am I living from within or reacting to what's outside of me? Because the real shift doesn't come from trying to fix the world. It comes when you finally stop outsourcing your peace and come home to yourself. And from that stillness, another question begins to rise. It's strange, isn't it? How much of our peace we give away just to be liked. We shrink our voice, we hide our truth. We twist ourselves into something more acceptable, more agreeable, more palatable. And yet, even after all that, someone somewhere still won't approve. This is where Lesso Lesson 2 begins. Let people dislike you and still rise. Imagine the sun pausing at the horizon, wondering, will they like my light today? It doesn't. It simply rises, quietly, confidently, unapologetically. It knows its warmth won't be for everyone, and that's perfectly okay. You are not here to be universally accepted. You are here to be deeply true. But somewhere along the way, many of us started treating approval like oxygen. We gasped for it. We chased it. We shaped our lives around the fear of being misunderstood. And in doing so, we traded authenticity for applause. Buddhist wisdom whispers something different. Do not look for a sanctuary in anyone but yourself. What would happen if you stopped editing your edges just to fit into someone else's frame? What if you trusted that being disliked was not a failure, but simply a sign that you're finally showing up as your real self? Here's a gentle truth. Being true to yourself might disappoint some people, but it will liberate you. You'll begin to see which relationships were built on masks and which ones can handle your truth. You'll begin to hear your own voice again, not as a whisper, but as a grounded, clear knowing. Living without apology doesn't mean living without kindness. It means offering your light without dimming it first. It means standing in your truth, even if it's not met with a standing ovation. Because peace is not found in trying to be loved by everyone. Peace is found in not abandoning yourself in the process. Let people misunderstand you. Let them misjudge you. That's their path to walk, not yours to fix. You weren't born to carry the burden of every opinion. You were born to become so rooted in your own essence that no storm, no silence, no rejection can uproot you. As you practice this, you'll discover something remarkable. The more comfortable you become with being disliked, the more space you create for your authentic life to unfold. You stop living as a reflection and start living as a flame. So ask yourself, where have I been shrinking just to be seen? And what might bloom if I stop seeking permission to exist? Because the next step on this path isn't about being louder, it's about being truer. And that journey begins right now. There comes a quiet moment in life when you realize saying yes too often doesn't make you kind. It makes you disappear. You smile when you're hurt, agree when you don't believe, nod when your soul wants to shake its head. Why? Because pleasing others feels safer than disappointing them. But that safety is an illusion, and the cost is far too high. Lesson 3. People-pleasing is a subtle form of self-betrayal. You don't need to burn yourself just to keep others warm. Yet many of us have been conditioned to do exactly that. From childhood, we're taught that love comes with obedience, that harmony means swallowing discomfort, and that to be accepted is to be agreeable, even at the expense of truth. But here's the truth no one tells you. Every time you silence your real feelings to make someone else comfortable, you're stepping away from yourself. Bit by bit, you abandon your needs, your values, your voice, and it doesn't happen all at once. It's slow, it's subtle, but it's real. Imagine this, a mountain spring, once clear and vibrant, slowly clouded by mud each time you say yes when you mean no. At some point, you stop seeing your reflection in the water. You forget what you truly want. You forget who you are. Buddhist wisdom gently reminds us, compassion isn't about self-erasure. True compassion begins within. It starts with honoring your own experience. It starts with boundaries, with presence, with the sacred courage to choose authenticity over approval. And no, as this isn't selfish. This is healing. Because when your own cup is full, what you offer to others flows naturally. Love given from a place of wholeness is never strained. Kindness rooted in self-respect doesn't come with resentment. This is the kind of giving that frees, not depletes. Ask yourself today, where in your life are you shrinking just to fit in? Who are you still trying to please at the cost of your peace? And more importantly, what would change if you stopped? Start small. The next time you feel the urge to please, pause. Take a breath. Ask, is this true for me? Is this a yes from my soul, or just fear in disguise? You don't have to explain your no. You don't have to justify your truth. Your clarity is reason enough. And as you begin to practice this, something beautiful happens. You return to yourself, not the edited version others expect, but the real, whole, powerful you. And that, in itself, is an act of deep compassion. There's a quiet danger in constantly shaping yourself to fit others. Like a tree bending with every gust of wind, you begin to forget how to stand tall in your own truth. You become so focused on being accepted that you abandon the deeper question, who am I when no one is looking? And here lies a profound lesson. 4. When you live for others, you slowly disappear from your own life. It begins subtly. A small compromise here, a silenced opinion there. You say yes when you mean no. You wear smiles to cover your exhaustion. You agree to things that hollow you out just to avoid disappointing someone. These may seem harmless in the moment, but over time, they fracture your sense of self. Social media intensifies the trap. Every like becomes a measure of worth. Every comment a vote on your value. In a world addicted to approval, it's easy to lose sight of your inner compass. You become reactive, not reflective. You perform instead of live. But the cost is immense. The more you seek validation from others, the more you silence the voice within. Your dreams shrink to fit the mold of expectation. Your passions are postponed again and again. And one day you wake up realizing that you've become a stranger in your own story. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that clinging to recognition is just another form of suffering. The tighter you hold on to others' opinions, the further you drift from yourself. When you live for applause, your peace becomes as fragile as the silence that follows it. What if instead you return to your roots? Imagine being like a mountain, unmoved by storm or praise, steady in presence, grounded in truth, not indifferent, but deeply centered. This is the essence of mindful living. It's not about rejecting the world, but no longer depending on it to feel whole. Each time you pause and ask, what feels right to me? You reclaim a piece of yourself. Each time you say no without guilt or yes without fear, you water the roots of your being. This is not rebellion, it's realignment. Living for others may feel noble, but if it costs you your inner clarity, it's a price too high. True freedom begins when you stop seeking your reflection in the eyes of others and instead look inward, where peace has always been patiently waiting. And from this quiet center, we now step into another essential truth, one that challenges the deepest habits of the heart. There comes a moment on this path, often quiet but profound, when you realize you're exhausted not because you've done too much, but because you've tried too hard to be someone you're not. That's when the fifth lesson begins to reveal itself. Live by your own standards, not the ones set by society or inherited from your family or copied from the noise of social media, but the ones that truly resonate with who you are, beneath the layers of approval-seeking and fear. Because here's the truth. If your worth is built on being impressive, you'll always feel the pressure to outperform, to look better, to prove more. Even when you win, you won't feel peace, just temporary relief, followed by deeper anxiety. The applause will fade, and with it, your sense of identity, unless it's rooted within. Buddhist wisdom reminds us that the only meaningful success is inner contentment. External achievements come and go, but the feeling of living in harmony with yourself, that's the quiet victory no one can take away. But how do we start living by our own standards? First, by slowing down enough to hear your inner voice. Not the voice that compares, but the one that knows. Second, by defining your own idea of enough, not based on income, status, or image, but based on peace, purpose, and presence. Third, by asking often, does this nourish me or drain me? In Zen, we are not taught to become better versions of someone else. We are invited to return to our most honest self, the self that breathes deeply, walks lightly, and lives truthfully. To live by your own standards doesn't mean rejecting the world. It means including yourself in your decisions. It means trusting that your inner compass is worthy of guiding you, even if others don't understand the path you walk. So today, ask yourself gently, what would it look like to succeed by your definition, not theirs? And from that clarity, we step into one final insight, perhaps the most personal of all, the lesson that reminds us why betraying ourselves for others is never worth the cost. There comes a moment on the inner path when a quiet question arises. Am I still negotiating my worth? That's the heart of Lesson 6. Your worth is not up for negotiation. We live in a culture that teaches us to prove ourselves, to perform, to impress, to earn love through effort. But the wisdom of Zen Buddhism invites something radically different, to stop bargaining for your value and start remembering it instead. Imagine a diamond buried deep in the earth. Whether anyone sees it or not, it remains precious. It doesn't become valuable when polished. It simply reveals what it already is. The same is true for you. Every time you bend your truth to be accepted, every time you shrink to fit in, you chip away at that diamond. And over time, you forget. You were never meant to be shaped by others' opinions. Buddhist teachings remind us that attachment to validation is one of the quietest forms of suffering. We long for the world to say, "You're enough." But as long as we're waiting, we're already doubting. True peace comes when you no longer chase applause to feel alive. When you can sit with your breath, your being, your presence, and know it is enough. This lesson is not about arrogance. It's about returning to your original face, the one before the world told you to be more, do more, prove more. It's about living as if your worth was never on the table, because it never was. So the question is no longer, how do I get them to see my value? But rather, how do I live now that I remember it? And maybe, just maybe, the moment you stop negotiating is the moment you begin to truly live. There's a deeply rooted belief in many of us that to be kind, to be loved, we must constantly put others before ourselves. That somehow choosing yourself means turning your back on the world. But Lesson 7 reminds us of a liberating truth. Living for yourself is not selfish. It's a sacred return to wholeness. Somewhere along the way, many of us were taught that to be good is to give endlessly, that love means sacrificing, that compassion means putting others first, even when it empties us. But here's the quiet truth the world rarely tells you. Living for yourself is not selfish. It's sacred. True generosity doesn't come from depletion. It comes from fullness. You cannot pour light into others when your own candle is barely flickering. You cannot give warmth when you're constantly burning yourself just to keep others warm. That kind of giving may look noble, but it's unsustainable. And eventually it leaves you hollow. This is the moment where a deeper understanding begins. Buddhism teaches that self-care is not indulgence. It is wisdom. As the Buddha said, you yourself, as much as anybody in the universe, deserve your love and affection. Imagine carrying that truth with you through your day. What would change if you treated your needs not as inconveniences, but as sacred signals calling for your own attention? This lesson reminds us, living for yourself is not about pushing others away. It's about finally showing up for yourself. It's about choosing nourishment over burnout, honesty over people-pleasing, and inner alignment over outward performance. When you stop shrinking to make room for others, you start creating space for your truest self to breathe. Picture this. You wake up and before checking your phone, before responding to demands, you pause. You ask yourself, what do I need today to be whole? And maybe it's rest. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's saying no without guilt. These simple acts are not selfish. They're sacred steps toward inner freedom. Because only when you are full can you give without expecting anything in return. Only when you respect your own boundaries can your love become steady, not strained. This is the paradox of compassion. When it begins within, it expands without. So let go of the belief that your worth is tied to your usefulness. Let go of the guilt that rises when you choose yourself. Remember, you are not here to burn out for others. You are here to shine. And in doing so, you become a lighthouse, not a sacrifice. Let this be the start of a new kind of giving, one rooted in truth, not exhaustion. The world doesn't need more of you if you're running on empty. It needs the version of you that's grounded, present, and whole. The one who gives from overflow, not obligation. And perhaps the most compassionate thing you can do today is to come home to yourself first. There comes a moment on the path when you stop asking, what else do I need to become? And start asking, what am I still holding on to that hides who I truly am? This is the quiet pivot of awakening. It's easy to spend your entire life chasing the next improvement, the next approval, the next version of yourself that you think will finally be enough. But Buddhist Zen wisdom doesn't ask you to add more. It invites you to subtract, to let go of the noise, the masks, the cravings, and return to the one place you've been avoiding, your own untouched center. Lesson 8. Come home to yourself and stop searching outside. In Zen, truth is not something to be decorated, achieved, or earned. It's what remains when everything false falls away. It's not a matter of becoming, it's a matter of being. But we've been taught that we are not enough as we are. So we chase applause. We bend to expectations. We decorate our identity like a costume, hoping the world will finally say, "You're good now." But the more we look out there for confirmation, the further we drift from the peace already within. Look at your own life. How much energy have you spent trying to be seen in a certain light? Afraid of being misunderstood? Afraid of being too much or not enough? How often have you shaped your words, your choices, even your silence, to fit the image that others approve of? It's a subtle form of suffering, and it's fueled by a restless mind that has forgotten its source. Zen doesn't ask you to improve that mind. It asks you to watch it, gently, patiently, until its stories lose their grip, until the need to impress dissolves into the quiet joy of simply existing. The world tells you to build a self. Zen invites you to unbuild it, layer by layer, until what's left is real, raw, and radiant. You don't need to become extraordinary. You just need to stop abandoning your ordinary presence. The moment you stop living through others' eyes is the moment the fog begins to clear. You start to see the root of your suffering isn't your flaws, it's your forgetting. Forgetting that you're already whole beneath the performance. Forgetting that your worth was never something to win, it was something to remember. As Zen teaches, the mind that seeks is the mind that suffers. When you stop seeking yourself in the world's opinions, you finally glimpse what's always been here. Unshaken, unchanging. Come home. You are already enough. And now pause. Breathe. Because the journey inward is not about arrival, it's about recognition. The real question is, are you willing to stop searching and start seeing? At some point, we must ask, what does true freedom really mean? It's not about doing whatever we want, whenever we want. That's just another form of enslavement, this time to impulse, to ego, to emotion. In Zen Buddhism, the highest form of freedom is not an external choice, but an inner mastery. You are truly free when no thought can shake you, no praise can sway you, no fear can cage you. This is the essence of Lesson 9. Living with awareness is the path to true freedom. Think about it. Most people believe they are free, but their days are dictated by triggers, by what someone said, by what they fear will happen, by the constant pressure to be more, do more, prove more. They live not from presence, but from reaction. Zen invites us to stop this cycle, to pause, to breathe, to observe the mind instead of obey it. When you can witness your anger without becoming it, see your sadness without drowning in it, hear criticism without collapsing, then you are no longer owned by the world. That is what freedom feels like. It's not dramatic, it's quiet. It's the spacious calm that comes when your peace is no longer for sale. Setting boundaries, for example, is not a selfish act. It's a sacred one. In Buddhism, monastics keep precepts not to isolate from life, but to preserve clarity of mind. You don't build walls to push others away. You build them to protect the stillness within. And from that stillness, compassion flows, not from guilt, but from groundedness. To live awake is to walk through the world without being pulled by it, like a still lake that reflects the sky, yet remains unmoved by the wind. You don't need to control the storm. You simply stop letting it stir your depths. When you live from awareness, choices come from clarity, not craving, and you start to see peace was never found in avoiding pain or pleasing others. It was found in the steady return to presence. Zen doesn't ask you to fix yourself. It asks you to see yourself, without judgment, without rush, just with presence. And from that seeing, a gentle strength arises, a kind of quiet knowing. I am not my thoughts. I am not my emotions. I am the space they move through. That is freedom, and it has always been yours. In a world that constantly demands our attention, our performance, our perfection, there's a quiet revolution that begins the moment you stop asking, "Am I enough for them?" and start asking, "Am I being true to myself?" You see, real worth is not something others can give you. It doesn't come from applause, likes, or external validation. It arises from the sacred act of knowing yourself, accepting yourself, and standing with yourself, especially when no one else does. When you stop living for approval, you start living for truth. You stop chasing a version of yourself built by other people's expectations. And for the first time, you get to be instead of perform. Inner freedom is not loud. It doesn't come with fanfare. It's subtle, steady, like a flame that doesn't flicker, even in wind. It's what you feel when you no longer have to prove your worth to belong. But here's the truth. This journey takes courage. Because saying no to pleasing everyone often means saying yes to being alone with your truth. And that's not easy, but it's where the real healing begins. So ask yourself, are you still trying to fit into a mold that was never made for you? Or are you ready to step into the life that reflects your inner light? If your soul feels called to that quiet freedom, you're in the right place. This channel is not here to change you. It's here to remind you of what you already are. A soul worthy of peace, a heart deserving of space, a being born to live freely. If that resonates with you, don't just watch. Join us. Subscribe now and walk with us on this journey of mindful living, quiet strength, and deep self-respect. And before you go, share this in the comments. What part of you are you ready to stop hiding and finally embrace? Your words might be the reminder someone else was waiting for.